The last time both Red Bull cars were eliminated in Q1, Kimi Antonelli was 44 days old, which if we follow the math, means that by complete logic, mathematics, and fate, Lewis Hamilton will take his first win in Ferrari Red tomorrow. Delusions aside, though, after qualifying, I think a number of fans have to have delusions to feel hopeful for tomorrow. Both Red Bulls have not been eliminated in Q1 since 2006 in Japan. And while all of today felt pretty shocking, especially qualifying, I have to say that today's big story really is Kimi Antonelli. Kimi obviously came into this season with an incredible amount of pressure. He was replacing 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes. He was only 17 years old when we were talking about this happening, and now he's only 19 years old, the youngest person on this grid, at a top team right off the bat. Not only that, he also moved through the junior ranks of Formula Racing very quickly, skipping over F3 and not even finishing a full season in F2 before his Formula 1 contract was announced. And we saw some glimmers of why this decision was made back in Miami when Kimi Antonelli became the youngest ever pole sitter in any Formula 1 format when he took pole for the sprint race. But this weekend actually felt even more impressive, because not only did we see him outpace George Russell yesterday in sprint qualifying, putting himself on the front row for the sprint race right next to championship leader Lando Norris, we also saw him really show up this morning in the sprint race itself. One of the troubles that he had in Miami was that even though he took that pole for the sprint race, he wasn't able to maintain that position. Here in Brazil, we saw him take P2, get off the line and maintain his position, and maintain that second position even after a red flag and a rolling restart. And not only maintain that position, but by the final laps of this race, he was really putting pressure on Lando Norris. And as we saw, the sprint race was a pretty tough one to finish. And interestingly enough, the mistake that all three of those drivers made was one that we know Kimi was able to avoid because he saw Lando Norris hit that water and quickly adjusted to not take that same aggressive racing line and keep himself on the track. So not only do we see him outpace his teammate during sprint qualifying and the sprint itself, we also see him hold George back in both the start and the restart. And we see him not only race hard but smart during the sprint race itself. And then on top of all of that, in a very chaotic qualifying with names we're not used to seeing at the top, Kimi Antonelli really stunned and put himself back on the front row for the Grand Prix itself. This actually makes Kimi the third youngest driver to qualify on the front row for a Grand Prix, only being surpassed by two other active drivers on this grid, Lance Stroll and Max Verstappen. And obviously we'll have to see how the race goes tomorrow, because we know that Interlagos can be a very surprising race itself. However, I think either way, this has been a really big showing from Kimi, and also shows why Toto Wolff and Mercedes saw so much potential in Kimi in the first place. I am so excited to see what Kimi looks like in a car next year that is developed around him with his input, as well as a season that has completely new regulations, which actually really evens the playing field across the board. But of course, I always want to know, what are your podium predictions for tomorrow, and where do you see Kimi Antonelli going in the next few years?